Feels like we've been waiting forever for these rookie running backs to break out, and finally we got the game we were looking for.
Yeah, Genti looked awesome.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, obviously he was good too. I mean, that's not what I was thinking of.
Hampton? I mean, Hampton looked almost as good.
Yeah, of course, Hampton. I mean, yeah, he was good too.
But who are you talking about?
Woody Marks, I mean, isn't that obvious? Look, there's still some other rookies we're waiting on, and of course, plenty of veterans who have a chance to help you in week 5. Don't forget, bye weeks, you're going to need some more help setting your lineup. Let's do it. Let's go game by game and figure out who to start and who to sit. We have 4 teams that are going to be out of action this week, and that includes Bijan Robinson and the Falcons. Got the Bears, the Packers, means no Josh Jacobs, and the Steelers. They're all off. So this week, the must-start list at running back: Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, Saquon Barkley, and Devon Achane.
If we've helped you at all this season, we ask one small favor from you. Please hit that subscribe button down below. We're on the road to 100K subscribers this year. I know we can do it. There are a lot of people who watch this channel regularly that are not subscribed. If you're one of those people, do us a massive solid. Take 1 second, hit that subscribe button.
So let's start off with the Thursday matchup. Should be a pretty good one. You got the 49ers at the Rams. Yeah, CMC is still there, right? Still hanging on, must start. And Kyren Williams has not been a must start. And got to wonder if he's ever going to get back to that status, at least this season, because Blake Corum is kind of putting a dent in his workload. So where does Kyren sit these days?
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to get back to must start, honestly. We've seen Blake Corum the last 2 weeks, like inch closer. I'm still going to say Kyren Williams is solid. The 49ers run defense did not look very good on Sunday against Travis Etienne. But they are still a good defense even without Nick Bosa, and I do worry about Blake Corum. So he's going to be solid, lower end of the solid. And then Blake Corum, I know he's starting to get more touches, but I think still not yet. I'm sitting Blake Corum.
Yeah, and I don't feel like this is a takeover either or anything like that. Corum is still just giving him a breather. He's going to get some touches. What's frustrating for Kyren owners is he may still get goal line touches, but Kyren does also still have touchdown upside. And like you said, this 49ers defense is good, but it's not elite. So solid feels about right. And Corum still does not have standalone value. On Sunday, got another international game, this time in London. Still the Vikings are overseas. This time they get to face the Browns. All right, so start with the Vikings backfield. Jordan Mason, the guy there, but there's also another guy who starting to get involved. It's not Aaron Jones. He's still out. It's Xavier Scott. All right, but let's talk about Mason. He's really the only one that is owning fantasy right now. So how do you view Mason against what is still probably the best run defense in the NFL?
Yeah, definitely the best run defense in the NFL here. You can't feel too good about him. I'm going to put him solid, but again, very low end of the solid because we know he's going to get the volume. He could always score. I know last week Xavier Scott, it was only because they were getting blown out, somehow getting blown out by the Steelers, and they were in like pass-happy comeback mode. Not worried about that against the Browns. I think Mason will get the touches. Maybe doesn't have tremendous upside in this matchup, but he could score, so low end solid.
Right, and like I mentioned Scott, not because I feel like he is somebody of relevance in fantasy, but this just kind of underscores the limitation with Jordan Mason is he's not a pass-catching back. I mean, they got Scott doing that for him, so that does limit Mason's upside already in PPR leagues, and he's facing the toughest run defense there. Look, we told you to sit Monty for the most part last week, and Monty did nothing. I can't feel better about Jordan Mason. There's no way. I think he's a flex, and I don't mind just outright sitting him. But then on the other hand, you got rookie Quinshon Judkins of the Browns. This guy just keeps looking better every week.
Yeah, he looks awesome. And the Vikings, look, I think we're going to see a better Vikings defense than we saw last week. I mean, they've gotten to, basically stay overseas, so they should be used to this time change here that, I don't understand why the NFL does this, but Judkins looks so good. Even in this terrible offense, he scoring touchdowns, breaking tackles. I think he's got to be a strong start. The Vikings, not a super tough run defense here. Got to be a strong start this week.
Exactly, and he is a workhorse. There's not really that many that still exist in the NFL these days. It's a handful of them. Usually they're the elite running backs. He's not that yet, and this is definitely not a great offense, but he basically is the offense. Minnesota's defense is, vulnerable against the run. I mean, you've got Judkins, you pretty much just start him. I'll tell you what, as far as Judkins goes, I mean, he's not only is he running effectively, he's scored each of the last 2 games. I think he keeps it going here and gets this Minnesota defense, which is just okay against the run, Why not? Take the higher, 0.5 touchdowns. If he scores, you win on underdog. I'm taking that. You can roll with me. And also, if you're new, you haven't tried underdog, you get that free pick. They give you a gimme every single week. So make sure if you're new to underdog, you sign up using code ENDGAME because you get the gimme pick. You also get a special pick for using our promo code, plus up to $1,000 of bonus cash. And they are still giving out an extra $100 as soon as you play $5 of your deposit. So go ahead and sign up for underdog now if you haven't yet. All right, now for the main slate, the early games here on Sunday, we got the Cowboys taking on the Jets. All right, so Javonte Williams didn't look like he was going to do much of anything after the first half of that game, and just like the whole Cowboys offense pretty much went off in the second half. How do you feel about him against this Jets defense?
Yeah, he's got to be a strong start. He looks good. He's in this Cowboys offense that can score a ton of points, and this Jets defense looks terrible. They can't tackle anybody. No reason to sit Javonte Williams this week. Strong start.
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of waiting to see exactly what the Jets would look like on Monday night. It is not better. I thought Aaron Glenn was a defensive coach. That's what I was told. Yeah, I was like, okay, Javonte is getting basically all the run here. He's looked pretty good. I feel like this is solid, but maybe high-end solid. This week, probably if you have Javonte with those bye weeks, maybe he's just like an auto start for you. All right, now we have the Jets offense, which may not inspire you too much more compared to their defense, but they get to face the Cowboys, which I think it's safe to say still look like the worst defense in the entire league.
Yeah, it looked like the worst defense or one of the worst defenses here. Not a strong run defense at all. And look, Braylon Allen, very iffy if he's going to play this week, left with that knee injury. I think that could be good for Breece Hall. Still worried we're going to see more Isaiah Davis than we want to see, but this is a great matchup for Breece Hall. I'm going to say Breece solid this week because I still worry that we are going to see more Isaiah Davis than we want.
Yeah, I'm really tempted. Again, we won't know till later in the week. If Braylon Allen's completely out, might be tempted to go strong for Breece Hall, but I don't think I can really have him leapfrog Javonte Williams here. Let's just say he should be a very solid start at the very least.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
All right, next up, we got the Giants at the Saints. Different look here for the Giants on offense. We started with Russ Wilson and Tyrone Tracy. Now we've got Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo. But Tracy didn't play last week. Not sure his status for week 5. But does that really affect how you feel even about Scatterboo?
I think it'll affect how I feel a little bit if Tyrone Tracy plays. But I think Scatterboo still has to be solid. It looks like the Giants are kind of going let's go to a youth movement here, right? I mean, obviously unfortunate with Malik Neighbors, but look, Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo were a big reason why they won that game last week. Why not continue with Cam Scatterboo? It's a great matchup against the Saints. I can't get too excited about him in this Giants offense, but he could always score. He gets the volume. I think he's got to be solid this week.
Yeah, that's the thing. You feel like that same exact player in a different system, a better team overall, might be more productive. Still the Giants, still a rookie quarterback, and no Neighbors hurts, but it's a great matchup. I think he's a pretty safe, solid pick at running back. Now, as far as the Saints go, it is fair to ask, is anything about Alvin Kamara safe anymore? We're not seeing the pass catching, and all of a sudden now, he's not necessarily the lead runner. I mean, technically, but barely. So how far does he fall this week?
He falls down to the flex. I'm going to put both him and Kendre Miller in the flex this week. I mean, only 4 more carries than Kendre Miller last week. Kendre Miller got the touchdown. Kendre Miller looks good. Giants, not a strong run defense here. The worry, of course, is that the Saints get game scripted out, but that doesn't even help Alvin Kamara, honestly. This guy not even catching passes hardly, so both these guys flexes this week.
Talked about this on the waiver wire video. I think Kamara is just now flex. The pass catching is basically what keeps him afloat in fantasy value, and it's not completely gone, but it's not there nearly to the level it was before, and it's not good enough to make him a guy I feel comfortable starting. I also don't feel like I need to start Kendre Miller yet. I know the Giants Not a great team, game script, all that. I just don't know if there's going to be enough plays run here to make him fantasy viable. He also isn't catching very many passes. So for that reason, I'll just say you can stash him, but sit him. All right, Raiders at Colts. JT finally had his first non-dominant game, but you still start him, no questions asked. And now everyone's talking about Ashton Genty. At this point, I think everyone who drafted him, besides doing backflips, they're finally going to say, well, now you got to start this guy from here on out, don't you?
Hopefully you weren't benching this guy anyways. Look, the Bears might be the worst run defense in the NFL right now. The Colts are not the best run defense, but they're better than the Bears. Don't be surprised if Genty is nowhere near as good as he was last week, but I'm going to still say solid because he can do what he did last week. But yeah, I think maybe, people are a little overexcited after what he did to the Bears.
Yeah, this defense is not nearly as bad, but it's not necessarily the most formidable run defense either. Colts, a good team, obviously, but not a great team on both sides of the ball. I feel like this is going to be a competitive game, assuming that Geno Smith doesn't throw 3 interceptions again. And look, even with him doing that last week, we still saw Genty break out. I feel like it's kind of like one of those things, a lot of people have been talking about the stance, right? You got that Michael Myers stance now. Hey, it worked. Whatever happened, I feel like, the floodgates have just burst open now. Not saying he's going to do that every week, but how can you not start him? He's a strong start for me. All right, now let's talk Dolphins at Panthers. Achane still has to be in your lineup. He's pretty much the only Dolphin you can really count on these days, but can you count on Ollie Gordon for much of anything?
Look, the Panthers aren't even a great run matchup for running backs anymore, right? They've actually been pretty good against the run this year. I mean, not the best, but much better. So this is touchdown or bust. You can do better.
Even with bye weeks, you can and should be able to do better. Ollie Gordon just not getting enough run. And then on the other side, is Chuba Hubbard doing enough to make you want to start him these days? He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great. And then Rico Dowdle is still kind of lurking there. So what's the word?
Well, Rico Dowdle, same thing. A touchdown or bust here. I'm not starting Rico Dowdle. Chuba Hubbard, you got to feel pretty good. This Dolphins defense does not look very good against the run. I mean, the Jets ran all over this Dolphins defense, did almost whatever they wanted to on the ground here. I know Chuba hasn't been great, but he still gets the bulk of the carries, catches passes. I like Chuba this week. Solid start.
Yeah, I think he at least should be a solid start based on the defensive matchup. This is one of those games you feel like it's two, let's face it, not so great teams, not so great defenses. It could be one of those high-scoring games based on the fact that nobody can stop each other. All right, next up is the Broncos at the Eagles. Look, no matter how disappointed you may be in Saquon Barkley so far, you don't bench Saquon Barkley. Now, you might want to think about it with the Broncos running backs just when we thought it was pretty obvious, right? Dobbins was the lead guy, Harvey was later, and then, of course, Sean Payton doing Sean Payton things, mixing it up on Monday night. We started to see a lot more Harvey. So now what do we make of this backfield?
Well, that's the thing. Going into this week, who knows? Maybe we see, back to all Dobbins. Maybe we see all Harvey, but it's not a great matchup against this Eagles defense. I'm just going to say both these guys kind of risky flexes. I mean, I probably still prefer Dobbins because I think if one guy's going to be the guy right now, it's going to be him, but not a great matchup here. Just going to say both these guys flexes.
Yeah, I was ready to say, well, Dobbins is at least solid because of the volume, and well, there goes that. Look, the Eagles, as far as run defense goes, are good, not great. Kind of like these other defenses you've mentioned. So I feel like Dobbins is definitely a flex at the very least. Harvey, you know what? I don't feel like it's enough that I really want to start him, but you might need a guy like that, and he still does have that pass-catching upside over Dobbins, so at least he's maybe a low-end flex as well. All right, the moment we've been waiting for. Let's talk Woody Marks. Probably the number one waiver wire pickup of the week. And oh, by the way, not a must start in this matchup either side because we're actually going to have to talk about Derrick Henry, I think, for the first time in a very, very long time. So let's start with the Texans. All right, we saw what Marks did. Was that just because it was the Titans on the other side, though?
Well, maybe, but this is the Ravens on the other side who somehow might have a worse defense right now. I mean, they're down like 6 or 7 key starters on this defense right now. Look, you never know when it's like they're going to just go back to the way it was where Nick Chubb gets more touches than Woody Marks because he's a rookie and Sometimes these coaches like to do this with rookies, right? Like make them earn it or whatever, but he looked so good last week, and it's such a good matchup. I think he's got to be solid. And Nick Chubb, I haven't been starting this guy for weeks. No way I'm starting him now.
Oh, yeah. Look, he will still get touches. Chubb maybe even gets double-digit carries if they don't fall behind early. It doesn't matter, and it hasn't mattered. I'm not starting Nick Chubb still. Woody Marks, agree. I, again, don't want to overreact to one game, especially because it was a couple of touchdowns. You know, Justice Hill had a couple of touchdowns last week and put up yards, and that doesn't matter. Woody Marks is taking over as the guy, and again, just because the Baltimore Ravens defense is pretty much one of the worst in the NFL right now, I think he's got to be considered solid as well. All right, now, maybe we're disappointed with Derrick Henry. The numbers haven't been there since that week 1 blow up, but I mean, come on. This is the king. I really don't even care what he's done the last 2-3 games, what the matchup is. I am not sitting the king.
I mean, that's fair. I'm not really sitting the king either, but I do have some concerns. Like, number one, the defense. Game script has not been in the Ravens' favor lately, and that means they're not running the ball as much. And then number two, how healthy is Lamar Jackson right now? So I'm going to say Derrick Henry, solid, like very solid. Like, I'm mostly not benching Derrick Henry here, but I think there are some running backs I might sit Derrick Henry for this week.
Well, I'll just say not just it's Derrick Henry, but I mean, I'm going to use those two factors that you mentioned in his favor. Number one, if Lamar Jackson isn't playing, they're going to absolutely feed him the ball 30 times because they're not going to want to Cooper Rush to try to win the game necessarily, right? Let's just be honest. And then the Texans, you're right. They really have a very good defense, but they still have a very bad offense. Let's face it. The Ravens really, if Derrick Henry doesn't get involved, it's because they happen to fall behind. They definitely fell behind to the Chiefs. They've fallen behind to other teams like Buffalo. They're not going to fall behind early big to the Texans. There's no way, right? So, yeah, look, Derrick Henry to me is still a very strong, pretty much a must start. All right, now Titans at Cardinals. The Titans backfield has been all and only Tony Pollard. It is possible Tyjae Spears comes back for the first time because he is eligible to come off IR. So, if that happens, what does that mean for Pollard?
I don't think it means much for Pollard here. I'm way more worried about this offense than I am Tyjae Spears. I mean, I almost want to say sit Tony Pollard, but I can't tell you to sit a running back getting this kind of volume. So, look, he's a flex. He could score, but if he doesn't, the upside isn't very high.
Yeah, there's really not many nice things to say about the Titans offense these days. And, Cam Ward, the quarterback, was pretty blunt about it. Look, Tony Pollard somehow is number one out of all running backs in terms of snap percentage for their team and rush share. And Tyjae Spears coming back might put a small dent in it, but there's no guarantee Spears even comes back this week. He's eligible. It doesn't mean he will. And he's still getting the volume. So, look, the Cardinals, again, I don't feel like the game script is going to work that much against the Titans. Cardinals don't seem to like being front runners. I think he's still a low and solid pick. Now, last week, we had a ton of Trey Benson questions. It was his first time as the guy there without James Conner. I bet you we have even more questions about Benson after last week because he didn't exactly do a whole lot with his opportunities, but he's still the guy, and it's the Titans.
He's still the guy, but a weird thing here, like we saw him not really play down the stretch, thought, okay, that's because they were coming back, they were in comeback mode, and they had DeMarcado, but now it's like dealing with something. They're saying he's day-to-day, so we're going to have to keep an eye on this, so he might not even be 100%, but it is the Titans. I'm not worried about the Cardinals getting game scripted out here against the Titans. That is for sure, so I think he's got to be solid this week, and then if he happens to miss, I'll say DeMarcado slots in as a risky solid start this week because he does catch passes, but only if Benson is out. Otherwise, he's a sit.
Yeah, well, so on the one hand, like you said, exactly, game script should definitely be in his favor. Should get a lot more carries than last week, and so I feel like Benson, if he's good to go, is solid. I mean, he's averaging 5.5 yards per carry. You just want to see him get more carries. If he's banged up, that moves him down to a risky flex. If he misses altogether, I think DeMarcado, to me, is just more of a high upside flex. The Bucs are taking on the Seahawks in Seattle this week, so this is going to be a little bit tricky. And no, I'm not talking about the Seattle backfield. So Bucky Irving did Bucky Irving things, made some big plays last week, but then kind of out of nowhere, because we didn't hear anything about an injury on Sunday. On Monday, then all of a sudden, Todd Bowles saying he's getting an MRI. I don't even know what he's getting an MRI for, do you?
No, this certainly came out of nowhere, so we're definitely gonna have to watch this. I will say, if he plays, if he is good to go and he plays, I'm gonna say solid start this week. I know it's hard not to put him in the strong start. I'm gonna say a very solid, like one of the better solids. This Seahawks defense is very good, and really, okay, he was better this week, 4.2 yards per carry. But if you take out that like long pass touchdown, which, let's be real, probably not going to do that again the rest of the season. He really, again, did not have a very huge day for fantasy here. So, tough matchup, but still very good, solid. And I'll say this, if he's out, I think Rachaad White becomes probably more of like a risky solid because he'll get the volume, but again, the matchup is not great.
You're right. I was ready to keep Bucky kind of down there, like maybe the solid tier. And actually watching part of that game this past week, I was like, man, again, that efficiency is not there. He's not doing it. Then that long touchdown pass, but also I saw him rip off a couple of long chunk plays on the run. And remember, Wirfs is back here. And this just reminded me why you just keep a guy like Bucky in your lineup, because he always has that, right? He always has that in his wheelhouse, the big play, but also he's getting involved as a receiver. He had 5 catches. They're using him more in that way. They're not really involving Rachaad White as much. So I don't know. I got to keep Bucky, especially this week, as a strong start. And then there's the Seahawks backfield. Probably more of the same, huh? One of those frustrating splits.
Yeah, back to this frustrating split. Although I'll say when you really dive into it, Kenneth Walker had 20 touches for 110 yards. Like, that is a great game for a running back. It's just we saw Charbonnet score and people just want more. You know, I feel like this is kind of where fantasy football has ruined like our perception of things. It's like 20 touches for 110 yards, but he wasn't great in fantasy. He sucks, right? It's like, no, that's actually really good for a football player. But Zach Charbonnet is there. Zach Charbonnet could take touchdowns. The Bucs are a very good run defense. I sadly can only put both these guys as a flex.
Exactly. Bucs, one of the better run defenses so far this season. Vita Vea himself is run stuffer, and the worst part is you just can't really ever depend on Walker to have a big game because they're pulling him at the goal line for Charbonnet. So, yeah, that's just going to make this basically a frustrating split probably all season. Now let's talk Lions at Bengals. Jahmyr Gibbs is in your lineup, no questions asked. Now what about Monty? Last week, didn't like Monty, and you saw why. I'm guessing we like Monty quite better this week.
Yeah, you got to like Monty this week against this Bengals defense. These are the matchups you want to start David Montgomery in. These are the kind of games where we can see a game he had like 2 weeks ago. I mean, probably not going to have a game that big, but against the Bengals, certainly has touchdown upside here. Got to be a solid start this week.
Yeah, back to being solid. Almost tempted to put him higher because of the matchup, but he's still not the only guy there, in the backfield. So touches aren't guaranteed. Touchdowns are never guaranteed. So he's a very solid pick this week. Chase Brown, not so much. Look, he was better, for his own part as far as efficiency. He actually averaged more than like 1 yard per carry last week. But in the Bengals, this offense just looks lost.
Yeah, I mean, he was better, but he still wasn't great. And it's the Lions. This is a good defense. They're probably going to sack Jake Browning 10 times here. Risky flex. I mean, really, I would be totally fine with anybody who wanted to sit Chase Brown.
Well, I'll say he's only a flex in PPR because he will catch a couple of dump offs and he'll get you some yardage. But if it's a non-PPR and you're really needing a touchdown, yeah, just sit him. All right, now we got the Commanders at the Chargers. Let's get back to another frustrating split here. It's Washington's backfield. Bill, still not the guy. Chris Rodriguez is still a guy. And I think Jeremy McNichols still plays sometimes. So what do you do here?
I mean, this is as frustrating as it gets. It was like 20 snaps for Bill, 20 for Rodriguez, 19 for McNichols. Like, come on, what are we doing here? But you can't start any of these guys this week. Sure, one of them could score. Maybe 2 of them somehow score. But come on, you're really going to bet on that? I know I put Bill on the buy low because I still do like his long-term potential. Like, he leads all running backs in success rate right now. I got to think eventually that talent is going to separate. But it's not there yet. It's too soon. You got to sit these guys.
Again, no guarantee. Could one of those situations where 1 week all of a sudden they're like, all right, he's the guy. And they give him, like 3/4 of the touches. Don't think it's going to be this week, but even if it is at the Chargers, not a good spot. Could get scripted out here. So just sitting everybody involved here in this situation. Don't feel the same way about the Chargers. It is all Omari and Hampton. And if you had Omari Hampton, then you are so grateful because he looked like a beast finally last week. So is there any way you don't start him?
I don't think there's any way I don't start him unless I'm just stacked at running back. But I will say, kind of like what I said with Genty, this is not the Giants. This is the Commanders. And look, the Commanders are not a great defense, but they're good against the run, terrible against the pass. And look, for as good as Hampton was last week, and Hampton was great, he still did not get a ton of carries. The Chargers are still a pass-first, pass-heavy offense. So, gonna say Hampton is solid this week. He boomed last week, thankfully, because we did put him on the booms. Not sure I'm going to call him a boom this week, just solid.
Wait, you're not going crazy for the rookies here? Come on. Look, I will start Hampton, pretty much no questions asked, because he's the only show in town there. He's looking good. But also, I'm not worried about game script. Like before the season, you might have thought, well, the Commanders, they can put up points. But you got to remember, even if JD does come back, which he probably will, Terry McLaurin probably won't. This running game we just talked about, they're not doing a whole lot. I like this Chargers team better than this Commanders team. They're at home, so I feel like Hampton's going to get fed, and he's going to be very effective. Then the Sunday night game, you got the Patriots at the Bills. James Cook still must start territory. Let's see if that changes. As far as the Pats, still a frustrating timeshare. Nothing much changed, did it?
Nothing much changed, although at least Henderson did get that goal line carry, so if you started him, at least you got that touchdown. But nothing much changed here with the snaps, the touches. Yeah, this is frustrating, but I will say the Bills have not been very good against the run this year, so you can flex these guys. It's risky here, but if you need to, you can flex them.
Yeah, that's it. They're flexes because you're hoping one of them would score a touchdown. And yeah, if you started Henderson, you kind of got bailed out by that TD, but this is why we didn't love him last week. Ramondre was on the field more than Travion Henderson. Why would that change this week? Who knows? It might, but not enough for me to feel great about either of them. Then Monday night, the Chiefs at the Jaguars. Cannot feel great about any Chiefs running back. Are any of them startable, though?
No, this is touchdown or bust, right? Like maybe Kareem Hunt gets a short goal line carry, maybe Pacheco catches a touchdown like he did last week, or maybe they don't do anything. Because this is a good Jaguars defense. This Jaguars defense looks legit, so you got to sit these guys.
Yeah, exactly. You're just asking for frustration if you start any of these guys. Now all of a sudden, Brashard Smith, the rookies, starting to get a little bit more involved. I want no part of this at all. I will possibly start Travis Etienne, who, again, I was doubting him against the 49ers. Pretty good defense last week. Had a big game. I know the Chiefs are a good defense, but maybe it doesn't matter.
It might not matter. He looks good, right? So, I think you're starting Travis Etienne, of course, even in this tough matchup. I'm going to say solid. Again, lower end solid, though, because if he doesn't rip off like a long touchdown run, if he's having to grind out yards here against a tough run defense, may not be a big game, but he's so involved, he's still got to be solid.
Yeah, and we'll say that there's always the possibility this game doesn't go well for them because, the Jaguars somehow beat the 49ers. Didn't expect that, but yeah, the Chiefs could jump out ahead of them. But he's always got that big play. That's why I said I'll always take a chance on a guy who has that in the wheelhouse, could rip off that big run, that touchdown. So I'll say he's a high-end solid pick. Now, we always got you covered from every position, every single week. Here's our latest playlist with all the advice you need to win.